Sangay, Lieutenant General Aniruddha Chakravarty, Air Marshal Sri Shera, members of our chamber, members of Friends of Tribal Society, members of Tibet, Bharat, Maitri Parishad, guests and friends. Your Excellency, it is a singular honor and privilege for me to extend our most warm and cordial welcome to you this e-session on Indo-Tibet-China, Synergizing Global Peace this evening. You have indeed made it a more special occasion for Bharat Chamber of Commerce by accepting our invitation to address this session at this critical hour when all of us are full of anxiety over our country's recent stressful situation caused by China across our border. We are grateful to you for so kindly agreeing to address this session and giving us this opportunity to share your thoughts and vision on the roadmap to global peace centering on Tibet, which has been eluding us over several decades. Friends, as you all are aware, His Excellency Dr. Lobsang Sangay is a highly esteemed scholar and political leader of Tibet. He is the first elected president of the Tibetan administration after His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama's devolvement from political leadership in 2011. Your Excellency, it is happy augury that you have grown up in Darjeeling, where you had your school education and earned your BA degree in English literature and LLB degree from the University of Delhi, and thus have been acquainted with the culture and aspirations of India. A brilliant scholar that you were awarded a Fulbright scholarship to pursue your postgraduate study in law at the esteemed Harvard Law School and to become the first ever Tibetan to earn the most prestigious degree, Doctor of Judicial Science from the Harvard Law School. Friends, His Excellency's doctorate dissertation, Democracy and History of the Tibetan Government in Exile from 1959 to 2004, won him the Yong K. Kim 95 Prize for Excellence, and thereafter he has been honored with numerous international awards. I do not wish to list even a few of them, since each of the awards are important, and it will be a difficult choice in not naming all. Welfare of the people of Tibet has always been at the back of Dr. Sangay's mind, even as a student. At Harvard, he had the rare privilege to organize two unprecedented discussions between His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Chinese scholars in 2003 and 2009. Your Excellency, Lieutenant General Aniruddha Chakravarty, AVSM, VSM retired Chairman, Defense Subcommittee of our Chamber, will introduce the theme of today's session in a holistic context. I will therefore confine myself in briefing, making a few general observations. At the outset, I would like to mention that today's session is being organized by Bharat Chamber of Commerce in association with Friends of Tribal Society, which is engaged in running more than 1 lakh Ekal Vidyalaya in tribal villages including Leh, Ladakh, and Himachal Pradesh. And Bharat Tibet Sahyog Manch, Bharat Bharta today is our publicity partner. I must thank our associates for joining our chamber to this eventful session. I personally feel that we are having this discussion with Your Excellency this evening at a very critical time. On the one hand, while human life and economy have been crushed in the entire world by the virus originating from China, on the other, the Chinese leaders chose this crucial time for aggression at our border, contributing to further loss of human life and economic damages through uncalled for cross-border stresses. Historically, we find that when the British annexed Punjab in the early 19th century, there used to be tremendous trade and cultural exchanges between Tibet, Nepal, Afghanistan, Turkestan, and southern China with Kashmir, Ladakh, and Punjab, which also included the part of India, which is now Pakistan. These have been detailed by British explorers. However, with the partition of India, new geopolitical demarcations resulted and the situation became quite complex. China took advantage of the emergent situation and devised a systematic program of expansion of its territories. Tibet became the worst sufferer as China maintained that Tibet Autonomous Region is just the central part of Tibet, and the other two parts have been incorporated into China. With Chinese initiatives, cross-border conflicts and stresses have been continuously causing loss of human life and avoidable defense expenses. In this context, you have been forthrightly cautioning the world to look at the blueprint of Tibet and observe how the relationship with China starts with trade and then it becomes politics to transform into problems of national security and continuous stress. You have rightly stated that do business with China, but be careful. We fully agree with your view, and I'm sure that our Honorable Prime Minister has taken that call in right earnestness with the launching of Atmanirbhar Bharat mission. Your Excellency, stress. India has put a lot of resistance to Chinese trade invasion at the RCEP. I shall be grateful if Your Excellency could share your views on the current and future perspectives that could be taken up at the RCEP to protect the interest of both India and Tibet in the global context. Your Excellency, in relation to the economic prosperity of the Tibetan region, you have always emphasized that restoration of the geographical status of Tibet will automatically resolve the boundary dispute between India and China, since China will share its border with erstwhile state of Tibet. I personally agree with your view. I strongly feel that if peace can once again be restored through geopolitical situations, the people living in those difficult terrains of Tibet can be integrated with the rapid development that is taking place in our country. Tibet, Ladakh, and Kashmir can become the hub for new opportunities for economic growth. The economy of Tibet would also get a tremendous boost through pilgrimage, tourism to Kailash and Mansarovar. Your Excellency, you have made thorough studies over several years on today's theme, and the objective of this session is to share your wisdom. Without spending further time, I therefore wish to conclude my observations with these words, and therefore, before I request you to address us, I would request Lieutenant General Aniruddha Chakravarty to briefly introduce the theme of this session. Sir, after Lieutenant General introduction to the theme and your speech, we have Air Marshal Chera also here with us. I would request him also to put up his views, and thereafter we can have question answer session with the big audience participation we are having to listen to you. Thank you. Lieutenant General Anil Chakravarty, please take the session forward.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Your Excellency, Dr. Lobsang Sangay, President of Central Tibetan Administration, Sri Ramesh Kumar Saraogi, President, Bharat Chamber of Commerce, Air Marshal Chera, distinguished members, ladies and gentlemen. Today's e-session on Indo-Tibet-China, Synergizing Global Peace, is one of the most relevant topics currently. And indeed, we are very fortunate to have His Excellency Dr. Lobsang Sangay amongst us to share his views and his wisdom. Peace and tranquility, though desired at all times, its significance and requirements increase manifolds whenever there is uncertainty, dispute, and turbulence on a large scale. And the situation in the world, as also in India, points to some unprecedented events unfolding, leading to serious uncertainties and a relook at many issues. American nationalism, rise of China, the Brexit issue, rebalancing global economy, and of course, the global war on biological threat unleashed by the COVID virus, which has disrupted every aspect of human life, are some. Closer home, the Galwan standoff, resulting in martyrdom of 20 of our very brave soldiers, is very close to our heart. It is a situation which requires new thoughts, which need not be the ones which were followed in the past. There is a need to think, to engage accordingly, so as to meet the requirements of national interest in the shifting global dynamics. The overall interest is it's the national interest which is overriding. The world has witnessed, this is after the Second World War, first bipolarity, then unipolarity, and currently is clearly heading towards multipolarity. The world order, this world order, provides greater space for regional powers and the world of convergence. And India, in recent times, has emerged as an important pole in this world order. India has also shown willingness to shape global events, such as in Paris, on climate change or release of hydroxychloroquine medicine to the countries all over the world when it was needed urgently. India has also shown resolute resolve when required and did not hesitate to break past traditions. Some of the examples are 1971 Bangladesh War, 1992 economic and political repositioning, 1998 nuclear blasts, the successful conduct of Kargil War, and 2005 Indo-US nuclear deal. But I must also say that all the policies were not fully successful. For example, our engagement with China in the 1950s, even as the boundary and the Tibet issues were unresolved, was ended up in the debacle of 1962. Peace in the world, therefore, in the multipolar world, will possibly come with India and other like-minded countries working with different powers on different converging issues and not permitting military or economic strength of one or more countries to subdue developing nations. Before I request His Excellency Dr. Sangay to deliver his address, one last but important point, and that is no peace anywhere in the world is possible unless the mind, both of the leaders and those being led, is peaceful. Dalai Lama is a revered and respected leader in India who has enlightened many in the world with his teachings, irrespective of any religion. Such advancement of mind is extremely essential in the world today, and I would humbly request the organization to continue this noble effort vigorously. May I now request His Excellency Dr. Sangay to address the e-session.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction by Shri Ramesh Kumar Saraogi ji, and introduction to the theme by Lieutenant General Aniruddha Chakravarty ji. And I also want to welcome Air Marshal Chera ji. It's a great privilege to address the Bharat Chamber of Commerce, and as soon as I received the invitation, once I found out that you are based in West Bengal, Kolkata, I was very pleased because Amara Bari Kolkata Ashe, Namaskar. So I also like the theme because the theme is India-Tibet-China, synergizing global peace. And you put, Tibet right in the middle of India and China. So this is a good omen because Tibet in the middle can assure peace. So peace in your home and peace in your region assures peace in the world, especially because China and India are the two of the largest, populated countries. Now, the Lieutenant General Chakravarty ji was, asking about new thoughts and ideas. The screen new ideas and thoughts in addressing the issue. I would make the argument that perhaps you can have an old idea and old thoughts and old tradition and old status to assure the peace. Why I say this is, now I have said this in the media, how can we bring peace between India and China? Tibet was historically a zone of peace. And the border between India and Tibet was demilitarized zone. There was no need for army. Even there were hardly any police patrolling the border. And on the China side also, we didn't have large number of army between the border of China and Tibet. So Tibet as the buffer zone, as a zone of peace, assured that peace. So what we are saying now is we must go back to the same historical status, same historical relationship, zone of peace, to assure peace in the region. Because what is happening in Ladakh is very unfortunate. 20 Indian Jawans died, and we condemned any kind of violence. So such tragedy should not happen. And our condolences go out to all those family members who suffered because of this violence. Now, from Doklam, we saw that today's tragedy is not an isolated event. And if you go back to 1967, war in Sikkim, and then in 1962, in Arunachal Pradesh, and especially the same Gelwang Valley was used by Chinese army in invading India's territory. So this is a challenge because the Tibet-India border changed to Tibet-India-China border. Since then, all these tensions have come up. Now, there are so many things I can touch on, but because this is Chamber of Commerce, I'll stick to trade between Tibet and India, trade route between India and Tibet, and specifically the document called Panchshil. Panchshil is supposedly the treaty of peace, treaty of coexistence between India and China. If you look at the origin of Panchshil, the implementation of Panchshil, you will learn a lot of lessons. From there, you can see Panchshil, which was supposed to guarantee trade between India and Tibet, and thereby tranquility between India and Tibet, changed to other two, treachery and now tension. So now, from treachery, the present tension, we have to move to truce and tradition. Then we can go back to trade and tranquility. Now let me address this. We have to go a little further back. In 1914, similar convention was signed between representative of British India, signed for trade. Now, this trade agreement signed in 1914 was supposed to be renewed every 10 years. 1914, 24, 34, 44, every 10 years it was renewed between India and Tibet. But in 1954, Indian government sent its delegation to China, and the trade agreement was signed again in Beijing. The Indian government did not send the delegation to Lhasa, but to Beijing. They signed it, but if you look at the trade agreement, the body of the trade agreement is still about trade. The trade route from Sikkim to Yangtze to Shigatse to Lhasa. But if you look at the preamble, they put 5 points and call it Panchshil. So that is the document which assured trade and tranquility between India and Tibet. Now, at that time, the Indian side wanted this partial agreement to last for 25 years. But Chinese side said, no, only 5 years. How can you have such a major agreement last only for 5 years? So they negotiated a lot, and finally Chinese side agreed to pass the partial agreement for 8 years. Now at that time, Chinese army was already in Tibet. Full-fledged occupation was yet to take place, but already in Tibet. And the Indian side was also assured that whatever happens in Tibet will be peaceful, will happen only after consultation and consensus of the Tibetan people. Now, Panchil was signed in 1954. What happened in 5 years? That was the initial number of years the Chinese government wanted. 54 plus 5, 1959, Tibet was forcefully occupied. Between the month of March to September of 1959, only 87,000 Tibetans were killed. Altogether, after the invasion and occupation of Tibet, approximately 1 million Tibetans died. So, Chinese wanted for 5 years, 5 years occupation of Tibet happened. And what happened in 8 years? In 1962, the 1962 war happened. Invasion from Arunachal and Ladakh, all this happened. See, the Panchil agreement, which assured trade and tranquility between India and Tibet, itself had the date or the timeline for the occupation of Tibet and war of 1962. So that's why I said the Panchil, which was supposed to assure trade and tranquility, was changed to treachery and tension. Now, how did this treachery happen? China said we will connect China with Tibet with one road. Once the road is completed, it will bring trade, it will bring prosperity, it will bring benefit to the Tibetan people. But once the road was completed, tanks came, trucks came, guns came. That's how Tibet was occupied. Now that one road has been made, converted to, or expanded to 100 different roads. Railway line has come all the way from China to Tibet. Now the railway line is coming to the border of Nepal, and they want to bring it all the way to Lumbini, which borders Uttar Pradesh. Now, one airport at that time has become 30 airports in Tibet, 6 military airfields, most of them bordering India, right? So you can clearly see all this was planned already when the Panchil was signed or ahead of Panchil. Now, one point I want to make, the treachery. So the blueprint that the Chinese government used in Tibet is being used all over the world, including in the neighboring countries, possibly in India also. It's called elite cooptation. What they do is they buy off your leaders, political leaders. That's what they did with Tibetan leaders. They buy off your business leaders. They buy off your intellectuals. They buy off your journalists. So this is how they go, and they buy off your celebrities. So same blueprint that they use in Tibet. So by the time the invasion was full swing, there was debate in the Tibetan leadership as to whether the occupation of Tibet is good or not. Obviously, occupation of Tibet is bad, or was bad, continues to be bad. But within the elite, the businessmen, political leaders, things like even the religious leaders, there was some who were saying maybe it's good. So this is how they use treachery, to buy off the elite. Now you can clearly see this could happen also in India as well. Now, because of this treachery, Tibet was occupied. Once Tibet was occupied, Chinese soldiers have come all the way to the border of India. Now, the border incursion is happening every year from 200 to 300 to 400. Tension is escalating, and such kind of violence or tragedy that happened in Ladakh is happening in scale. So it was already, expansionist strategy of China. Because if you truly want to understand China, you must understand Tibet. If you don't understand Tibet or what happened to Tibet, you won't fully understand the manipulation maneuvering of the Chinese Communist strategy. So, if you look at Tibet and if you look at China, you must understand the word Tungguo. Tungguo means the middle kingdom, middle of the universe. And anyone who is in the periphery are barbarians. So by definition, Tibetans were barbarians. So original territory of China is only 40% of the area. The rest of the 60% that you see now, the map of China, are the territories of Tibet, Xinjiang, Mongolia, Manchuria, so on and so forth. So the expansion strategy that they had is hundreds of years old, and they expanded into Tibet. Now, after they occupied Tibet, Chinese leaders, Mao Zedong included, said Tibet is the palm. We have it occupied now. Now we have to go after 5 fingers, and 5 fingers are Ladakh, Sikkim, Nepal, Bhutan, and Arunachal Pradesh. So what you see is the age-old expansion strategy laid out at the very origin of the term Tungguo and the expansion to Tibet, and thereby further expansion to the neighboring countries, including in India. This is what you see. So now there's tension with India. So there's tension with all the neighboring countries of China. So tension has continued even today. Now, why should people of India know about all these things? Number one, as I said, when Panchshil was signed, Indian government was assured the liberation of Tibet will be peaceful. It was not peaceful. And in 1956, when His Holiness Dalai Lama visited India to attend the 2500th anniversary of Buddha Purnima, His Holiness Dalai Lama was here in India. One of his plans was to stay in India. But then Chinese Prime Minister Zhou Enlai came and visited India 3 times and assured then Indian leaders, saying, no, His Holiness should return to Tibet, and we assure Tibetan people a genuine autonomy. That was the assurance given to the government of India. At that time, there was a major debate in the Indian Parliament, and all the leaders who are watching should review those debates in the Indian Parliament by Jayaprakash Narayanji, Ram Manohar Lohiyaji, Dindayal Upadhyaya, Ambedkar, and the Atal Bihari Vajpayee, all of them participated and debated. And at that time, the main theme of the debate was 2 things, and it's still going on. Whether we should cooperate with China or compete with China. So one thought was, it's best to cooperate with China and compete less. So that was the dominant discourse. And it has prevailed even today. Now, competition or cooperation. I visited many capitals around the world. Even Washington, D.C., 30 plus years ago, they said cooperation, less competition. Now there's Washington, D.C. consensus. More competition, less cooperation, because China wants to compete with you more and cooperate less. European Union have also come to consensus. China is a competitor and less of a cooperator. Now in India also this debate is going on. So now India has to choose whether to, of course you will have relationship, but compete more or cooperate more. Now as far as Tibetans are concerned, we learned our lesson. China promised us peace, prosperity, but at the end we land up losing all that we had, our country. Now today, Chinese companies are exploiting our mineral resources. They're extracting all kinds of minerals. Gold, silver, copper, borax, uranium, and one important mineral called lithium. Any gadgets you make, the Chinese-made phones or computers or iPad, all use lithium-made batteries, lithium-based batteries. 70% of the lithium comes from Tibet. Did you know that? And second largest copper mine in the whole of Asia is in Tibet. All these billions of dollars of worth of minerals are exploited every day. And then China is benefiting more after the occupation of Tibet than letting Tibetans benefit. And on the other hand, which directly concerns India, is Tibet is the water tower of Asia. 10 major rivers of Asia flow from Tibet. Indus River, Sutlej River, Brahmaputra River, Salween, Mekong, Yangtze, Yellow River, all these major rivers of Asia all flow from Tibet. After the occupation of Tibet, Chinese army sits on top of the roof of the world, that's Tibet, and control the flow of rivers. Brahmaputra is a lifeline for northeast of Asia, Assam included. Indus and Sutlej are a lifeline for Kashmir. Now, they all originate in Tibet, right? Now, China has not signed the UN Convention of Water Sharing. So they can control the, flow of rivers, and they can divert towards China. If they do, they are not bound by international norms because they have not signed the UN Convention of Water Sharing. So because of all these factors, India has a role to play. Number one, India was assured in 1950s that peaceful liberation and genuine autonomy of Tibetan people. Environmentally, water-wise, is directly connected to Tibet. And if you go by history, our culture, our tradition is very much connected to Indian civilization. Buddha Dharam came from India. Even our alphabets, scriptures, kaka, khanga, anga, in Hindi you say kaka, khanga, anga. We just say kaka, khanga, cha, cha, chanya, ta, ta, thana. This is Tibetan script. It came from India. So for geopolitical reasons, as I explained to you, with the military tension that's going on, historical reasons, right? And commercial reasons, there were trade all the time between India and Tibet. And spiritual reasons too, not just Buddha Dharam, but Mansarovar and Mount Kailash are located in Tibet. So for all reasons, people of India need to know what is going on in Tibet, the historical reasons, and then participate in this debate so that, with the help of India and the international community, we can restore the status of Tibet same way back to the historical status as a zone of peace between India and China, and then make Tibet a buffer zone, and there will be a long-lasting peace. So this is our hope that it will happen. Now, Prime Minister Modi ji talks about making India true. On trade front too, more products and goods should be made in India so that Indian population can buy, and then the economy will grow. But the original Make in India, I think I can make an argument that it is the Tibetan cause. Because the Tibetan leaders like me, as I said, I was born and brought up in Darjeeling and educated in Indian schools, taught by Indian teachers, helped by people of India. So, and then our principle of non-violence, ahimsa, is very much Indian, and we practice democracy, which we also borrowed from India. So, we are the original Made in India. So if Made in India is to succeed, Tibetan movement, a non-violent one, led by His Holiness Dalai Lama, should succeed. If that succeeds, then there will be tranquility. So now from treachery and tension, we must move to truce and tradition. Truce, demilitarized zone, and tradition means traditional relationship between India and Tibet, and traditional status of Tibet. If that happens, then Panchil, the original purpose of Panchil, will be actually be Panchil and peace. So that's what I want to say. So with that, I want to thank the Bharat Chamber of Commerce for inviting me and giving me this platform. And on behalf of Tibetans all over the world, thank you very much. And namaskar, dhanyavad. Jai Bharat, Jai Tibet, Jai Jagat.
Is done, and this zone becomes a zone of peace and tranquility. And while you were speaking, I was just thinking that in the present scenario, this message should reach Nepal as well. Now we have Air Marshal Mr. Shera with us. I request Mr. Air Marshal Shera to share his views.
Good evening, everyone. In fact, at the outset, I agree and endorse my views to His Excellency Lobsang Sangay, Tibet as a buffer zone. Historically, Tibet has played a very, very crucial role, and it was always a peaceful buffer zone between the two mighty countries, and that's how historically it was. Unfortunately, when the things went bad in the 50s and then it took place thereafter, as we all know, historically, the Chinese not agreeing to the border lines drawn those days by McMahon and kept on creating a lot of problems across the line of actual control. See, the recent, of course, being the Galwan Valley issue, and before that, certainly we are aware of the other areas. Now, what to my mind, I'm absolutely in agreement to the talk which is going on, that we need, first of all, definitely we need to look at the economics. We need to certainly maintain a tough military stance, no doubt in that, and bring in the factors which are the economic trade deficit issues which are there with us and with China, so that we bring those at par, because today, out of the 90 billion trade which you have, it's heavy towards side. It's almost 75 billion. So what to me at the moment, what we should be talking about is bring back those concepts of one shield. Of course, as His Excellency said, that China will always promise but not deliver on the ground. We have to keep that in mind. But notwithstanding that, the way out, probably as far as I'm concerned, is the tough military stance at the borderlines. At the same time, a very high level of good quality talks, which is required today to move forward. Parallelly, look at your economic balances. Whatever can be made in India has to be made in India, so that our imbalance of trade is reduced. This is the way we can probably look forward today. Thank you very much. I will not add more to that. I will not even discuss the issues of the land. It's too early, too premature to even talk. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Air Marshal. We have Mr. Bagra from Friends of Tribal Society. Mr. Bagra?
Yes, Ramesh ji.
Yeah, please.
Friends, after such articulate speeches by defense experts and our keynote speaker of the day, His Excellency from the government of Tibet, I don't have to much except my experience that when I visited Kailash and Mansarovar in the year 2005, all through the period of close to 15 days when I was in the Tibetan territory, not a single hour went without suffering from a feeling that I am in a foreign land, whereas it should be one of my very dear neighbors' home.
I would request everybody to keep themselves muted because there's some bandwidth problem. Please keep all of you.
We need to, as His Excellency said, we need to find a way to move from treachery and the truths. The same event makes us feel that we have a very long road to cover. When the poor Tibet in 50s could invade its neighbors all around its south, west, and the north. Now the prosperous China, China is more emboldened. We are feeling, the whole world is feeling further. So, Tibetan tension, it is the growing tension. But ultimately, we have to reach the truth, however the long the road may be. We have a resolute will to follow, but at the same time, China, Tibet have to save their sovereignty, have to protect their traditions. That is the only way. Excellency said, after truth, that tradition is reaching to the tradition. Before reaching that, before truth, we have to save ourselves, protect our and sovereignty. What can happen? History is witnessed globe over. That cultures can be wiped out, civilizations have wiped out. We need to save against that first, and then ultimately move towards that. Very much.
I would request the other participants to share or to have share your suggestions or any question subject related to the subject. Now I will Mr. Ritesh Mishra from Bharat Tibet-China, MANCH. Would you like to tell something?
Yes, 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 sir.
हाँ Mr. Ritesh जी.
जी नमस्ते. सबसे पहले इस प्रोग्राम में जितने भी लोग हैं उपस्थित, मैं सब लोगों को नमस्कार करना चाहता हूं. मैं भारत तिब्बत सहयोग मंच के तरफ से मैंने 2 बार अरुणाचल प्रदेश के बोमला बॉर्डर तक जाकर के 8-8 दिन रह के करीब 16 दिन तक हमने वहां पे देखा है कि भारत तिब्बत सहयोग मंच एक बड़े ही उद्देश्य के साथ काम कर रही है. इसका मूल उद्देश्य है तिब्बत की आज़ादी. कुछ लोग बोलते हैं कि तिब्बत की आज़ादी क्यों जरूरी है, क्योंकि तिब्बत जब आज़ाद होता था उस समय हमारे देश की सुरक्षा में सिर्फ 76 सेना लगाए जाते थे बॉर्डर पे और भारत चैन से रहता था. लेकिन तिब्बत को जब से अपने विस्तारवादी नीति के कारण चीन अपने अधीन किया, कब्जा किया, उसके बाद से हमारे लाखों सैनिक उस इलाके में अरुणाचल क्षेत्र में लगाए जाते हैं और भारत फिर भी असुरक्षित महसूस करता रहता है. इसलिए तिब्बत की आज़ादी भारत की सुरक्षा के दृष्टिकोण से बेहद जरूरी है. और तिब्बत की संस्कृति, तिब्बत के लोगों का सोच काफी नम्र है, काफी विचारवान है. वो लोग काफी लगने वाले लोग नहीं हैं. हमारे भारतीय सभ्यता संस्कृति से उन लोगों का काफी गहरा संपर्क रहा है. इसलिए तिब्बत की आज़ादी बेहद जरूरी है. इतना ही नहीं, कैलाश
रितेश जी, आपका कोई प्रश्न या कोई सुझाव हो तो वो बताइए.
मेरा सुझाव ये है
और बिल्कुल शॉर्ट में.
हाँ, तिब्बत की आज़ादी के लिए हम लोग भारत तिब्बत सहयोग मंच के तहत कलकत्ता में भी एक प्रोग्राम हुआ था. इसको उद्देश्य को लेकर के चलने की जरूरत है, क्योंकि तिब्बत की आज़ादी के लिए हमने पूरे भारतवर्ष में पूरे करीब लाखों लोगों का सिग्नेचर अभियान चल रहा है. मैं चाहूंगा कि आप लोग भी सिग्नेचर अभियान करें, लोगों का सिग्नेचर लें और इसे अपने महामहिम राष्ट्रपति जी के पास जमा करना है. ये मार्च महीने में ही करना था, लेकिन लॉकडाउन और कोरोना के कारण नहीं हो पाया. तो मेरा यही कहना है आप लोगों से.
ठीक, धन्यवाद. मिस्टर एनजी खेतान is senior vice president of the chamber and a very eminent lawyer of All India fame. I would request Mr. N.G. Khaitan.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Your Excellency. Your talk has been really an eye-opener for me, at least. We all know that now we all know, the world knows that the China is one country which cannot be trusted. But what has happened in the meantime, it has become the second largest economy of the world. And today, China is the largest trading nation of the world. The China is now dominating all the India's neighbor. In fact, we read today that learning Chinese has become a compulsory subject in Nepal today. The India is actually dependent on China, but China is not dependent on India. Why I say so? That India accounts for only 2.1% of the Chinese trade. Today, there is a feeling that we will be able to take on China by boycotting Chinese goods. My perception is that this will not help us in any manner, maybe in a moderate way, but we cannot take on China just by boycotting Chinese goods, because the trade with China, with India, only accounts to 2.1% of Chinese trade. Now, we all know that the China has a geopolitical ambition. It took over Tibet. It has laid claim over Arunachal Pradesh. It has taken over Akasi Chin. I don't know, but there has been a report to some extent, whether it is true or right, I don't know, that they have taken over from finger 4 to finger 8. I really don't know. It was in the newspapers, all the newspapers yesterday, particularly in Economic Times, there were a lot of articles on this. As you rightly said, that their intention is now to look forward to Ladakh, Sikkim, Nepal, Bhutan, Arunachal Pradesh. In a way, they have taken over Nepal. They have practically taken over Pakistan. They have practically taken over Lanka. So I really don't know that what should be the policy. I mean, what would be your message to the political class? This is my question to you. What should be your message to our political administration and to the business community? Whether business community should boycott Chinese goods or act in some other manner? And also to the political establishment, what should be their role? How that we do not become, that the world do not come to China, we do not come to China. We create some kind of alliance worldwide. We would like to have your views on that. What should be the role of India in future? Thank you very much, sir.
His Excellency, would you like to take up more questions and answer together, or you'd like to respond to these questions?
Together.
Sorry?
I'll take all the questions together and make my final remark.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Then we have Mrs. Lata Malpani, and after Mrs. Lata Malpani, Mr. Rohit Khanna from Economic Times will raise the question. Mrs. Lata Malpani.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
I have just one question. When the Tibet was being exploited by Chinese, how come that time neither India nor Tibet took it very seriously, so that situation wouldn't have arisen to this level?
Thank you. Now, Mr. Rohit Khanna, and after Mr. Rohit Khanna, Manju Srivastav. Mr. Rohit Khanna?
Sir, Mr. Rohit Khanna has some problem. You can take a next question. He is just putting in the chat box.
Okay. Then Mr. Nirmalya Bhattacharya. Mr. Nirmalya Bhattacharya. I think he has also some network problem. Mr. Kumar?
Questions in the meanwhile.
Yes, Mr. Kumar.
Yeah. Your Excellency, that was a very positive and very optimistic speech you gave. My question is something, talking Tibet is not complete without a mention of His Holiness Dalai Lama. And he would be 86 years on the July 6th in another 2 weeks' time, a week's time. China caused the disappearance of the Panchen Lama in 1995. And you have Tenzin Gyatso appointed as the 14th Dalai Lama. Now, China would not accept them. And US Senate Foreign Relations Committee has informed that they would not accept your China appointed Dalai Lama. It's a very critical question because Dalai Lama is not like any other sadhu or swami in India. He is just the God incarnate as far as Tibetan traditions. I want you to just clarify.
Okay.
Ramesh ji, am I audible now?
Yes, Nirmalida, you are audible.
Okay. Now, my question is, when the Tibetan people, they all shifted to India in 1959, I saw them from close quarter at Retd, and I found them very wealthy people. What is the present status of the people of Tibet? Number one, and number two, do you feel that the fate that USSR has come up with, the same fate should be with China so that the world is at peace?
Is Mr. Khanna, are you ready there? Mr. Rohit Khanna? So he is not audible. He has sent the message in the chat box. I'll read out. Do you think that the present standoff between India and China is likely to continue for some more time? Do you also see any negotiation talk between the two countries to move towards a non-military solution to the current standoff?
Mr. Chairman, I think I'll address some of these questions now, if it's okay with you.
Yeah, please, sir.
Now, I think I can summarize my talk by saying Panchil was signed to continue the trade between India and Tibet, and there will be tranquility. So that was the promise made by Chinese government at that time, and government of India believed that. But within that Panchil treaty, seeds of treachery was planted, and treachery was instigated in Tibet, and that led to the tragedy of Tibet, occupation of Tibet and exile of Tibetans, including His Holiness Dalai Lama. So the trade and tranquility changed to treachery and tragedy. Now what you have is tension all over, tension between India and Nepal, tension between India and China, the tension in border, the tension with all the neighboring countries after the occupation of Tibet. So that's why I propose truce. So there's calm, and then we go back to tradition of making Tibet a zone of peace and the border a demilitarized zone. So that's the summary of my talk. So I was asked this question. So how can we, take this issue politically and from business point of view? Now, India is democracy. So there are hundreds of countries, in the world who practice democracy. The alliance of democracy should be formed and say democracy and international norms should be respected. Human rights should be respected by the Chinese government. So forming an alliance of democracy will put pressure on the Chinese government saying India is not alone, right? And India need not be alone because countries in the world, leaders in the world look at India as not just a practitioner of democracy, but a leader of democratic movements. So that's how you should approach. And you can use international forums, right? Because India can say, yes, we have a say. When Panchil was signed, we were assured it will be peaceful. And then there will be genuine autonomy will be provided to Tibetans. And if His Holiness Dalai Lama returned to Tibet, we assure his safety. All these were violated. And His Holiness Dalai Lama and 80,000 Tibetans had to flee. Now, there was a question, what is the financial or economic status of Tibetans? Thanks to the government and people of India, no country has done for more to Tibetans than India. So we are very grateful. At the moment, you really don't see any Tibetan who is homeless, who is below poverty, who's suffering. Our literacy rate is, 94%. And our pass percentage of class 12 and class 10, even though they take same CBSE board in India, our pass percentage is 99%, 98%, 97%. If school has a pass percentage below 90%, we say that's the worst performance, right? So if you compare to many of the government schools in various states, I think, India can take pride in saying that we provide a refuge to Tibetans and they are a model citizen, law-abiding residents of India, and they're doing very well. So our financial status, educational status, political status is relatively good. So I just want to assure and also thank the government and people of India. Now, Lata Malpani ji said, when Tibet was occupied, how come this issue was not taken seriously both by India and Tibet? It was taken seriously. So that's why I said, even in the Parliament of India, there was a great debate. And you can Google this debate. What did Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel said? He wrote this famous letter to Pandit Nehru. And Shama Pratap Mukherjee, Deen Dayal Upadhyaya, Jai Prakash Narayan ji, and Ram Manohar Lohia ji, Acharya Kripalani, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, B.R. Ambedkar, all spoke in the floor of the Indian Parliament and said, if Chinese army come to Tibet, soon they will come to the border of India and they will enter India. And if you don't want this to happen, we must support Tibet and Tibetan people now. If you support them now, we can at least maintain the buffer zone of Tibet between India and China. We can have peace. And the ideology of China, the authoritarian system is coming. They are atheists, they don't believe in religion, and we are a dharmic country. All this will get it. Now you just need to, review those debates and what those great leaders said. All the warnings were given by all these great Indian leaders. So I would urge Lata Malpani ji to go through all this debate and know what is going on. Now, present standoff, will continue or not. As I said, China's grand strategy is expansionist. So they're expanding in South China Sea and East China Sea, in Scarborough Island, and all the neighboring countries, including India. So the border of China was the Great Wall. Great Wall was historically China. That's why they built Great Wall to prevent enemies or the barbarians from invading into China. That's the wall. Now they have gone beyond the wall and occupied Mongolia, occupied Xinjiang, occupied Tibet, and occupied Manchuria. Now they're coming all the way to India, right? And they are entering neighboring countries of Sri Lanka, Maldives, and all Nepal and all these countries, Bangladesh included, because that's where they are interfering in the neighboring countries of India as well. So the grand design, it will continue. I think so. And we pray that there is no war. We pray that there is no violence, because we believe in ahimsa, we advocate ahimsa. But if you look at hundreds of years of Chinese strategy, it's a strategy of expansionism. So this, I fear, will continue. Now, as far as Panchen Lama and His Holiness reincarnation is concerned, we are very clear. Chinese Communist Party says they are atheists, they don't believe in religion, and they destroyed 98% of the monasteries and nunneries. 99% of monks and nuns were not allowed to practice. They disrobed, right? So, and then they criticize His Holiness Dalai Lama every day for the last 60 years from the mouthpieces of Communist Party of China. They have criticized him all his lifetime. Now, suddenly they're saying, oh, when it comes to reincarnation, we will interfere. So as far as Tibetans are concerned, they have zero credibility, right? And zero legitimacy. So we don't trust them. And how can an atheist, declared atheist, who destroys our monasteries and nunneries, will choose a religious leader and dharmic Tibetans will follow them? Now you are in Kolkata, and you know Sitaram Yechuri ji, right? He's a nice guy, a nice gentleman. I've met him a few times also. Now, assuming Sitaram Yechuri ji appoints one Shankaracharya, and how many Hindus will follow that Shankaracharya? Now, a gentleman like Sitaram Yechuri appoints a Shankaracharya, not many or hardly any Hindu will follow. Why would a Communist Party of China, who has zero credibility, all they did was destroy monasteries and nunneries, destroy monks and nuns, and criticize this all in Dalai Lama's lifetime, will believe him? No one will believe him. So that's why the international community, American government has spoken, European countries are speaking, right? So India, being the land of dharma, and from where we got Buddhism from, should say yes. Historically, Buddha Dharma, spread from India to Tibet. So we have spiritual bond, and we have a say too on this matter. So at the people's level, you can start speaking on this. So, so I think these are the questions I got, and I think I address most of them.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I hope we all have got our question answered. If anybody has something more, I'll request His Excellency to give a few minutes more. Manjuji, would you like to have tell something?
Yes.
Please.
I want to know now what has happened after this at the present status we are going through. What is the hope? Okay, India is always there for Tibet. We consider Tibet as our own brother, sisters, very close to our heart. And obviously, I have also read a book and I have sensed the pain Tibetans have gone through all those periods. So what the future we are looking for Tibet? The day will come when Tibet will be free. It will have its golden period. I may not survive, but hoping for it. So His Excellency, can you give ray of hope that Tibet will be Tibet one day, not a prodigy of China? What do you think the world will come around to help us Tibetans and Indians? We are like two eyes, two walls of one God. One is spiritual heritage.
Yeah. His Holiness Dalai Lama says, as far as Nalanda tradition or Buddhist tradition is concerned, Bharat is our guru and we Shiksha. Now, the student has become a little better and we have become the teacher as far as Buddha Dharma is concerned. Similarly, on the message of hope, we got inspired by the freedom movement of India. India was under British rule for 250 years and Indians remained hopeful. And great leaders of India remained hopeful decades after decades after decades, and after 2.5 centuries prevailed and won. So India remained hopeful for 250 years. Why can't we remain hopeful for 60 years? So when I go to Israel also, same thing, people will say, oh, given the tragedy, how can you remain hopeful? And I say, you Jewish people, you were scattered all over the world for more than 2,000 years. And you remain hopeful and saying, today we are here, next year we will be in Jerusalem. After 2,000 years, you went back. You gave us the inspiration of hope. So I went to Europe also. European countries will say the same thing. Oh, you are facing enormous challenges and odds are against you. How do you remain hopeful? And so Europe, you fought First World War and Second World War. It's called First World War, Second World War. Actually, it's a European war, right? Now you have formed a European Union, peaceful coexistence, right? You are the hope for us. So even when I went to Baltic states like Latvia, Lithuania, right? When they were under the occupation of Soviet Union, they did not believe in till 1988. The next year they will be free. Even the ministers, leaders did not believe they were going to be free in 1 year time. They were still debating how long the occupation will last, and they were saying maybe another 10, 20, 30, 50 years, 100 years. But it changed, right? So, we are very hopeful, given all these circumstances. This is in the recent history. Nelson Mandela was in prison for 28 years. Aung San Suu Kyi was under house arrest for many, many years. So you can go through the list of people who were imprisoned, house arrest, and they got released, and they did great things as well. And lastly, we practice Buddhism, which is 2,500 years old. And Communist Party of China, communist ideology, which has its own benefits, but it's only 100 some years old, right? So we have Buddha Dharam as our foundation. So we have lasted for, which has lasted 2,500 years, and the Tibetan civilization will last for another 2,500 years.
Wow.
So that's our foundation. We are very hopeful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now, before we conclude, I request Aman Vora. He is a young boy from Singapore who requested me to join after hearing this. A last question from Mr. Aman Vora. Then our Senior Vice President, Mr. N.G. Khaitan, will give vote of thanks. Mr. Aman Vora.
Hello, His Excellency. I would like to ask you if you could please comment on the fact that China has changed the demographic structure of Tibet by settling Han Chinese on the turf of Tibet. So how, in the long term, in the future of Tibet, and how will this impact the future of Tibet going forward? If you can please advise on this.
Yes, demographic changes, population transfer, we call it, sending Han Chinese population to neighboring territories, occupied neighboring territories of Manchuria, Mongolia, Xinjiang, Tibet. It's been an age-old practice now. When it comes to Manchuria, there are like almost 9 Chinese for every Manchurian. When it comes to Mongolia, there are like 8 Chinese for every 2 Mongolians. Now, fortunately, this is the demographic changes that's happening. Fortunately, Tibet is the roof of the world. Average height of Tibetan mountains is around 4,000 meters. Even we Tibetans, 2,000+ years ago, moved from 3,000 meters high to 4,000 meters high. So it took us 1,000 years genetic adaptation to move from 3,000 to 4,000 meters high. So for Chinese people to move and settle in Tibet permanently, it will take hundreds of years of genetic adaptation. So at the moment, those Chinese who come to Tibet, they stay in Tibet only during summer, April to September or so, October. Then they go back to China because Tibet is very cold. And the thinness of oxygen complicates it further. So that's why in summer, a lot of Chinese come to urban areas. But in winter, they also go back. But the rural Tibet, nomadic Tibet, which constitute about 80% of the Tibetan territory, are Tibetan majority both in summer and winter. In summer, Chinese come to urban areas, but they go back. But in the border areas of Tibet, so there are more Chinese and they are already settling there permanently because they are lowland. So fortunately, the Tibetan plateau, with the blessing of Mount Kailash and Mansarovar, we are also blessed, preventing Chinese migrants from settling there permanently. So there's a great debate going on about the global warming. We are not a big fan of global warming. I think globe should remain cold so the Tibetan plateau will remain cold and less Chinese can settle there permanently. So they are trying, they have tried, they have succeeded, yes, in other areas. They have succeeded in lowland at the border areas of Tibet, but inner Tibet still is Tibetan majority. So we will continue to pray to gods and deities of Tibetan mountains. And Lord Shiva, who is also there on Mount Kailash, will continue to protect us and make Tibet a Tibetan land. Thank you.
Thank you. I request Mr. N.G. Khaitan to give vote of thanks.
Your Excellency, before I propose a vote of thanks, I would like to pose a question which I posed before you earlier, that will it help, because there is a rhetoric that it will help if we start boycotting Chinese goods, and there is a euphoria going all over the country that in order to teach a lesson to China, we must start boycotting Chinese goods. I would like to have your views on that.
Now, in your point also, you said, the trade with India constitute only 2.5% of China's, export of GDP, something like that.
Yeah.
But 2.5% is a huge amount, because that's a huge amount of money, and every percent of export, if it's GDP, is enormous, but if it's export also, is very, very significant. Because for China, every product counts. Because of the coronavirus pandemic, economic growth in China is slowing down for obvious reason. Because now there is no market. European market shut down, the American market shut down, which is essentially around 50% of China's export, and Japanese market is also shut down. So even if Chinese factories can manufacture a lot of things, they don't have market to sell, because of which unemployment is very high in China. So which in turn is putting a lot of pressure on the Chinese government. So if they can sell any product, whether it's 1% or 2 or 5%, is very, very important. That's number one. And number two, China is a manufacturing hub. They manufacture, they have to sell. If they cannot sell, it affects the economy very, very badly. Now, number three is, whether the boycott should happen or not. There's lot is being talked about. But generally, if you look at the people buy things, when it is cheaper, when it's affordable, and they will speak from their pocket. But I've been saying this, that instead of asking the people, you should ask celebrities who endorses, Chinese brand. They are doing it for money. They already have lots of money. By endorsing one brand, they're getting more money, and they don't need that money. Rather, they can endorse Indian products. Maybe they'll make a little less money from endorsement, but they'll still make money and sell more Indian products. So because you are Bharat Chamber of Commerce, all you want to do is, sell your own products. But if your Indian celebrities endorsing your product and make, help make you, sell your product more to Indian jantas, then it's a win-win proposition. So celebrities endorsing Indian product, and the traders and the business people of India gaining more, business by selling more to Indian janta, and then the Modi ji's make in India, self-reliance of India, economic growth India will happen. So this is what I have been saying, Now, whether government wants to ban one country or another, it's, government can do a lot of things. Actually, you can, export, import license, export, import taxes. You can do a lot of things. So there's government can do, a lot of things people can do, but something that is in the middle, which is very, very important, is celebrities endorsement. I think you can start from there and, have them endorse Indian products, and then, Bharat Chamber of Commerce membership will grow, members will make more money, and then, Indian jantas will make more money as well, and India's economy will grow. This is a win-win proposition.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, Dr. Lobsang Sangay, President, Central Tibetan Administration and political successor to His Holiness Dalai Lama, Lieutenant General Aniruddha Chakravarty, Air Marshal Shera. It has been a pleasure that all three of you have been with Bharat Chamber today and have spoken to us on this very important subject, which is a subject which is very close to the entire India. I mean, today, because we have been affected by COVID-19, and on the other hand, now we are having this problem with our borders with China. So whatever His Excellency has told us today it has been a very, very eye-opener for us, and it has been a lesson for us. He has practically covered all our questions, and he has given us a very, he has answered all our queries in a very, very apt manner. I must thank that this is the first time that the Bharat Chamber is having a webinar and having a direct talk with the Tibetan officials. And sir, thank you very much for participating today and addressing our members. We are really grateful to you, and I would like to offer our sincere gratitude to you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, His Excellency, our immediate past President, Mr. Sitaram Sharma, he has just messaged. He has a small question. If you could a few minutes more, please.
Okay.
Sitaramji Sharma. Mr. Sitaram Sharma.
एक बार फोन करिए उनको.
हाँ.
हाँ, ভালো আমি শুনছি.
অনুগ্রহ করে অপেক্ষা করুন বা কিছুক্ষণ আপনি যে ব্যক্তির সঙ্গে যোগাযোগ করার চেষ্টা করছেন
হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ पे करिए.
অভিক তুমি দেখো, আমিও দেখছি. I think network issue. I'm not getting his line as well.
তিনি অন্য
I'm trying.
ভালো হয়ে গেছে.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
We really were so much of information we got from you, and hopefully Tibet and India will further tighten their bonding. And while we were speaking, a very informal thing came to my mind, that your experience should be shared with the Nepali people of Nepal as well, so that the mistake which they are doing now, they do not do. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Shera Saab, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
We meet again on Thursday.
Yeah, we will meet on Thursday. Thank you.